I spent a full year in Calamity Terraria. I'm assuming you've watched the first part, so I won't explain the details again. If you haven't watched it though, I recommend you to watch it, so I'll link it in the description. Anyways, like, comment, and subscribe, and let's begin. So on day 183, the first day of this part, I figured we should start with something relaxing, something cool. Let's kill the cultist! I just got back from like a week break without playing Terraria, so I was kind of rusty and I died a few times. But eventually I got the fight down. Nobody will ever know about the 4 deaths I had before this try. So yeah, sorry if we're already starting big. I was just hungry for some bosses after the break. Then I destroyed the 4 pillars. After I destroyed the Nebula pillar, this happened. Yep, Mr. Moonman decided to jump scare me just like last playthrough. I fell for it 2 times now, damn it. But it's fine since I want to kill 3 other bosses before we kill the Moonlord. That being Astrum Deus, a Calamity Worm boss, the Bereft Vassal, which is an Infernum exclusive boss, and Astrogeldon, a boss added on by the Catalyst mod. On day 184, I upgraded my Status's Blessing by combining it with the first Shadow Flame to make the Status's Curse. And it gives me 3 minion slots. That's really nice. Then I farmed in the Astral Infection for Titan Hearts, and I used the Titan Hearts at the Astral Beacon, and I summoned Astrum Deus, also known as one of the 6 metal worms we've fought in this playthrough. This boss took me like 20 attempts last playthrough, but here, it was different. After I beat Astrum Deus, I got access to Astral Ore, so that's cool. Day 185. Remember when I found the Desert Temple in my first 182 days? Well, it's time to actually go back to it, because I want to fight the Bereft Vassal. It's an Infernum exclusive boss, and to summon it, you need a Sandstorm Core to open the portal and go into the subworld, where you fight the Bereft Vassal. So I crafted the Sandstorm Core, and with it, I was able to open the portal, and I went inside it, and after exploring the subworld for a bit, I fought the Bereft Vassal. I'll let you on a little secret. This boss took me a few attempts, don't tell anyone I cut it out. On day 186, I prepared to fight the final boss before Moonlord, which is a boss added by the Catalyst mod, Astrogeldon. This first phase was easy, but when I thought I beat it, it entered a second phase, and it was literal hell. But after entering the second phase, every time I fought Astrogeldon, I didn't have to do the first phase anymore, it just entered the second phase straight away, so that saved some time. So from days 187 to 191, I kept trying to fight Astrogeldon, and it took me 65 attempts. I hate this boss. I'm actually gonna punch something. But luckily, in the end, this happened. At this point, I was actually considering switching classes. Every boss was taking way more attempts than I would have liked, and I suck at playing Summoner. But a lot of you guys said it would be interesting to do a Summoner playthrough in Infernum, so I kept going. And don't worry, I played Summoner this entire playthrough, except for that one boss wheel fight. Day 192 was spent making the Intergalactic armor set. After I killed Astrogeldon, this new ore called Metanova ore spawned in the underground astral. So I collected some astral ore and Metanova ore to make enough Metanova bars to make the Intergalactic armor set. It was actually really good, and summoned these asteroids around me and my minions that deal damage to the enemy. Day 193 was spent fighting Moonlord, and eventually this happened. So yeah, we beat Mr. Squidlord. I can't tell if I'm happy or scared, since after this point, things are gonna start to get very excruciating. I got the Celestial Onion, which gave me an extra accessory slot, so of course I used it. On day 194, I went for an upgrading session. I made the Stardust armor set, then I made the Seraph Tracers, an upgrade to the Angel Treads, and they also count as wings. Then I made the Flowers of Mortality and the Tactical Plague Engine. The Flowers of Mortality is an upgrade to the Wither Blossom staff, shooting these projectiles at the enemies. And the Tactical Plague Engine summons this Plague Jet that fires bullets and missiles at the enemy. Lastly, I made the Mechanical Glove and the Fire Gauntlet. They both stack and they gave me whip speed, so I used it. On day 195, I made the Exotic Pheromonus, which summons the Dragon Folly. After reforging my items, I summoned the Dragon Folly. It took me a total of 2 attempts, but it was still so painful because of how long the fight was. Summoner was doing no damage. After I killed the Dragon Folly, I made the Resonance Striker, a whip from the Calamity Whips mod, with short range but very fast speed. On day 196, I farmed in the Hallow for profaned enemies to get Unholy Essence, and I used the Unholy Essence to craft the Profane Shard. Then I made my way to the Profane Temple at the bottom right of the underworld. As I prepared to summon the Guardians, this happened. I think that was Cygnus. Wonder where he came from. I then went to the center and found this cool note, which was referring to the Profane Shard. It's read, 3 disciples, 1 mind, 1 deity, 1 purpose, tempered by the holy flames of providence. An ancient artifact is crystallized, with the sole purpose of initiating the ritual at the cliff of this temple. That's pretty cool. So I summoned it at the cliff, and it turned into Flappy Bird. Yeah, they reworked this boss. After 2 tries, I realized how underpowered I was. I didn't want to rely on whips, so I replaced the 2 gloves with the Frozen Shield and the Deific Amulet. You probably know what the Frozen Shield does, but the Deific Amulet gives me immune time and lowers my potion cooldown and gives me a health regeneration. But then I found out something. You know the tactical plague engine I'm using? Well, it turns out you need bullets to use it. I've been using it the entire time without bullets, so it wasn't even doing anything, and I didn't even know. Yeah, I know I'm an idiot. So I made some Holy Fire bullets and did the Profane Guardians again. From days 197 to day 199, I kept trying to kill the Profane Guardians, and eventually, the meatballs succumbed to death. So yeah, 28 attempts only. If it took me 28 attempts to kill the Guardians, I wonder how much it'll take to kill Providence. It won't be easier than the Guardians, right? So on day 200, I finally fought Providence, and they also reworked this boss. And this fight is honestly amazing. And on day 201 and 202, I kept trying to kill Providence. And after 8 attempts, I killed Providence. Yeah, it took me only 8 attempts for this boss and 28 for the Guardians. It's safe to say that this boss was way easier than the Guardians. Providence dropped the Elysian Aegis and the Elysian Wings. The Aegis is basically just a better Asgard's Veiler, so it's a really good dash. And the Elysian Wings are a very good set of wings that have a lot of flight time. Providence also dropped the Rune of Kos, which summons the Sentinels depending on which biome you're in. It summons Cygnus in the underworld, the Ceaseless Void in the dungeon, and the Stormweaver in space. On day 203 and 204, I made some upgrades. I went into space and mined up these Exodium clusters that spawned in space after Moonlord. I used the Exodium clusters to make the Profane Soul artifact, which summons 3 guardians, a healer guardian which healed me, a defensive guardian which boosted my movement speed and damage resistance, and an offensive guardian which boosted my minion slots. I also made the Righteous Dawn, a whip from the Calamity Whips mod that does more than double the damage of the Kaleidoscope, so that's a good upgrade. Since I wanted a new weapon, I made the Virid Vanguard, which summons these swords around the player, and people say that this weapon is very overpowered for the Devourer of Gods, so I'm gonna love this weapon. Spoiler alert, it was not overpowered for the Devourer of Gods. I also made the Elderberry, which just like the Blood Orange and Miracle Fruit, boosts my health by 25. On day 205 and 206, I fought all 3 Sentinels. First off, I fought the Stormweaver. It didn't get a full rework, but it got some new attacks, so that's pretty cool. Then I bought a Providence treasure bag from one of the quality of life NPCs, and I got the Dazzling Stabber Staff, which summons this blade that damaged enemies by dashing into them. Then I fought the Ceaseless Void. I thought this boss was going to be a pain because when I saw this on YouTube, it looked like absolute hell, but honestly, it wasn't so bad. And lastly, but definitely not least, I fought Cygnus. And on my first try, I did some really cool moves. On day 207, I used my battle cry in the Forsaken Archive to get Phantoplasm from the dungeon enemies. Phantoplasm gets dropped by dungeon enemies after Moonlord is killed. Unfortunately, after killing too much dungeon enemies, this happened. I killed too much dungeon enemies and poltergeist spawned, but fortunately, I got enough Phantoplasm to craft the Necroplasmic Beacon, which summoned Poltergeist. Then I prepared an actual platform in the Forsaken Archive to fight Poltergeist, but before I fought it, I wanted to get a few weapons. So I killed the Ravager, since he drops Bloodstone after defeating Providence. I used the Bloodstone to craft the Dragon Blood Disgorger, which summons this Blood Dragon and her 2 children, and it requires 6 minion slots to summon. And on day 208, I tried to kill Poltergeist, and I wasn't expecting to beat it on my first prepared attempt, but this happened. Wow, 1 attempt only. Is Summoner actually getting good? I got the Phantom Hearts from Poltergeist, which boosted my rage and adrenaline time by 1 second, as well as my damage reduction by 5%. I also crafted the Phantomic Artifact, an upgrade to the Spirit Glyph. So it gives me a certain buff every time my minions hit an enemy, which will either boost my damage, defense, or life regen. On day 209, I collected 3 bloodworms in the Sulphurous Sea and made the Bloodworm Platter, an exclusive Infernum item that allows me to summon the Boomer however times I want. Before fighting the racist though, I completed the 3rd tier of the Acid Rain, but at the end, the man himself spawned. On day 210, I decided to just skip the Boomer and go straight to the Devourer. I mean, who really likes this idiot? I made the Brimrose, a cool flying mount that'll help me against the Devourer of Gods, the next boss on the list. And for some reason, I never used it. Then I decided to make my arena bigger, since I'll need a very big amount of space for the Devourer. So from days 211 to 216, I just made my arena both wider and taller, and I needed to destroy a lot of underground space so it can become a part of my arena. So that's why it took very long. And on day 217, I tried my first fight with the Devourer. I was able to dodge the attacks, but I did no damage with the Verid Vanguard. So I tried the Ethereal Subjugator, a summon weapon dropped by Poltergeist, and that also did no damage. So on day 218, I switched to melee, since Summoner was going to be impossible. Don't worry, I'll switch back later, don't click off. But then, when I tested this loadout out, melee also sucked. So on day 219, I switched to Mage, and it was doing okay, I guess. And from day 220 to 224, I kept trying to kill the Devourer of Gods with my Mage setup. Nothing worked though. So on days 225 and 226, I decided to use a strategy. True melee. Apparently, a weapon called the Holy Collider can shred the Devourer. I decided to go for a full glass cannon setup. I already had the Holy Collider, but I switched my armor to the Omega Blue armor, possibly the most glass cannon armor in existence. So from day 227 to 237, I kept trying to kill the Devourer. Eventually, I started to actually get close, and then at one point, just as I was about to give up, this happened. So yeah, 231 attempts, this was a pain. But from the treasure bag, I got over 1,000 Cosmolite bars. Infernum changes the amount of Cosmolite bars to over 1,000, so that's nice. On day 238, I sold a lot of the Cosmolite bars, since obviously I didn't need 1,000. And now I have so much platinum. Then I bought a few Devourer of Gods treasure bags until I got the Staff of the Mechworm. Good news, I decided to go back to Summoner. Devourer of Gods just sucks, so that's why I switched classes for it. Lastly, I farmed the Solar Eclipse, Frost Moon, and Pumpkin Moon, since they dropped new materials. And on day 239, I used those materials to craft Ascended Spirit Essence, and I used that to make Silver Armor. I also made the Dark Sun Ring, which gave me some minion slots and a regeneration or defense buff depending on if it's day or night. Then I combined my Status Curse and Star Tainted Generator to make the Nucleogenesis, which gives me an insane 4 minion slots, and a bunch of other summoner buffs. I also made the Asgardian Aegis, a combination of my Asgard's Valor and Elysian Aegis. I wanted a better pair of wings, so I made Silver Wings. I also made the Rampart of Deities for less potion cooldown and more life regen. Lastly, I made 2 new weapons, the Devourer's Maw and the Cosmic Viper Engine. The Devourer's Maw is a really good whip with insane range, and the Cosmic Viper Engine is an upgrade of the Tactical Plague Engine. Don't worry, I didn't forget to use bullets this time. So I spent days 240 and 241 fighting Yaron. And here's the thing, this boss took me over 100 attempts to do in my last playthrough. But when I was 7 attempts in, this happened.
Beyond your control, or was that all your intention? Have managed to demolish whatever we make, but you're failing to comprehend. If they can, they will easily butcher you whole while you're plundered by your digression. I have gotten to the point where I'm just too afraid that you're going to meet your end.
So yeah, I accidentally killed Yaron in 8 attempts. How fun. On day 242, I mined up some Auric ore, which spawned just after I killed Yaron, and I used the Auric ore to make the Auric Tesla armor set. Problem is, it took me the entire day just because of how much materials I needed to craft the armor. So on day 243, I made the Celestial Tracers. Then I spent until day 251 making the Codebreaker. Here's the thing, it took that long just because I had to get Draydon power cells using power cell factories. I also had to cheat in the Sunken Sea schematic because for some reason my Sunken Sea didn't have a lab. Even when I used the item that tries to find where the lab was, it literally didn't work. Then on day 252, I made the Pole Warper. I also bought some Yaron treasure bags until I got the Kindle Staff, which summons these creatures called Draconids, and it costs a hefty 5 minion slots just to summon one of them. Then I went to the Profane Temple again to find the Wayfinder, an item that you get from the cliff where you summon the Guardians, and it supposedly lets you quick teleport anywhere, so I wanted it, but for some reason it wasn't there. And I asked the Calamity Discord and people said that I already picked it up, but I legit never did and I didn't find it in my magic storage. So I cheated, spawned it in with my amazing Terraria skills. Don't worry guys, I would never use cheat sheet. Never. So then, I went to the Abyss and went down to the very bottom. What you see there is the Terminus. Unlike base Calamity, you don't find the Terminus in a chest in Infernum. It's much more complicated than that. After I set a teleport using the Wayfinder, I decided to hit the Terminus with a pickaxe. And what you see there is the Adult Eidolon worm. Infernum reworked it, and it's an actual full-fledged boss now. It's supposed to be fought after Yaron in Infernum, so before fighting Supreme Calamitous and the Exomex, I wanted to fight this guy first. So I spent day 253 fighting this boss, and I was actually doing really good damage to it. And sure enough, after a few tries, this happened. So yeah, this boss dropped the Terminus and some mage weapons. I'm not ready to do the boss rush yet, and I'm summoner, so I didn't really get anything good from this boss, but whatever. On days 254 and 255, after finishing the Codebreaker, I tried some fights with the Exomex. Just test runs, nothing much. So on day 256, I made some loadout changes. I started using the Catalyst version of the Auric Tesla armor. For this one, instead of using Tarragon, Silva, and Bloodflare armor, it uses Intergalactic armor, as well as Silver and Bloodflare. So it replaces the Tarragon armor set bonus with the Intergalactic set bonus, and it was really good. I also made the Sponge, which absorbs 6% of the damage I take and converts it to healing. And to top it all off, I made the Dragon Fruit, and it boosts my health by 25. Now I am overpowered and ready to absolutely melt the Exomex. So on day 257, I really started the fight. The fight I did before this were test runs, but now we are actually going tryhard mode. And remember what happened with Yaron and how I accidentally beat it? Well... I beat the Exomex. Yup. On accident, just like Yaron. I'm really speedrunning through this, huh? I got 2 useful items. The Draydon's Heart, which is a really good tanking accessory with insane defense, and it replaces my adrenaline bar with a nanomachines bar. It doesn't reset when I get hit, but instead of giving me a damage boost when I use it, it heals me 360 HP instead. The second item was the Eris Exoskeleton, which makes me be able to summon these cannons around my player, and you can choose which cannon fires the Tesla Cannon, Plasma Cannon, Laser Cannon, and Gauss Nuke. I preferred using 3 Plasma Cannons and 1 Tesla Cannon. On day 258, I tried my first fights with the Supreme Calamitus. Finally, we are here. This is the final boss. But 2 attempts in, and this happened. So yeah, 3 attempts only for Supreme Calamitous, the final boss of the game. I can't tell if I'm angry or happy, but as the Infernum credits roll in, since we beat the final boss, some of you guys are probably gonna leave right now instead of watching the full video. So let me talk to you guys a bit. This was by far the hardest to make video I have ever done. Not as in it was difficult to beat all these bosses, but it just takes so long to record these types of videos. I had to spend over 100 hours just to spend a full year in Infernum. But you know what's making me not stop? You guys. I just want to say a sincere thank you for supporting me and my dead channel and making it alive again. Here's the 20k, and let's go back to the video. On days 259, 260, and 261, I made a bunch of upgrades. Get ready for this wave of upgrades I'm gonna list. Using the Supreme Calamitous NPC, I exhumed my community into the Shattered community, which makes my rage damage better depending on how much I use it. Then I made Shadow Spec bars and used them to make the Demon Shade armor set. Then I made the Angelic Alliance, a really good summoner accessory which gives me minion slots and increased summoner damage. I also made 3 new weapons, the Endogenesis, the Proxima Centauri, and the Temporal Umbrella. The Endogenesis summons the snowflake thing that takes up 10 minion slots, but it does really good damage and you can only summon one of it. The Proxima Centauri is a very slow whip that deals really amazing damage, and the Temporal Umbrella summons an arrow to pierce your adversaries, a hammer to bonk enemies, an axe to cleave monsters, an umbrella to beat down your foes in grace, and a rifle to snipe anyone who stands in your way. That was painful. On days 262 and 263, I decided to try Boss Rush, but I got destroyed. Don't worry, I'll go back to it later. On day 264 to 267, I completed every Infernum achievement. I'll go through all of them real quick. I had to kill all 3 mech bosses at once, kill Nighttime Providence, kill the Devourer without a ram, beat every exo-mech combination, kill the Racist, kill every mini-boss, kill the Aquatic Scourge without having the acid meter exceed 50%, kill the Shadow of Calamitous in the Underworld, and find an Egg Sword Shrine. However, the last achievement required me to defeat the Boss Rush, but I had an idea. People told me that there was this weapon called Kevin, which apparently annihilates everything. So on day 268, I crafted it, and bruh, this damage is insane. So then I spent until day 273 trying to do the Boss Rush, and with the Kevin, I managed to beat it. Since the boss rush is like 20 minutes, I won't bother showing it. The summary of it is that you just fight a buffed version of every single boss in the game. So now I wonder, what now? I already beat every boss, beat every event, did every achievement, and I basically beat the game. Well, to pass the time, I did some more building. So from days 274 to 364, I not only did building, but I also did a lot of grinding bosses. Why? Because I wanted to get every trophy from every boss. Trophies are basically a 10% drop from a boss, and each boss has a trophy. So after doing some insane boss grinding, I managed to complete the trophy room. Other than trophies, I also decorated my main base, making it some kind of sky island and putting a cool bridge near it. And I also made the slab at the bottom of my big arena. It was meant to be the school Draydon lab, where I summoned the Exomechs. And day 365. At the last day of every 100 days video I've done, I always did something special. So for this one, I decided to buy an item from the Mutant Quality of Life NPC, which summons every single boss in the game, modded included. Now watch this amazing spectacular fight play. This is the best, most coolest fight in existence. Watch my amazing skills. Wow, very cool, right? Such a good fight. Well, anyways, that's it. That's the end. This took me so long to make, so I appreciate subscribing. I also want to grow my Discord, so join my Discord server in the description. Anyways, that's all from me for today, and see ya.